Good afternoon. I'm very happy to be back here. Like Ogden said, I study here my PhD, and I'm happy to be back and share, be implementing what I learned and share my experience back in Puerto Rico. I will be talking about the classes that I'm teaching back in Puerto Rico, and some of the results of these courses, and I will be starting with the Collaborative Design Vertical Studio. This is a studio that I taught before, the housing studio, and it's about collaborative participation techniques that the students have to implement in a community. In this case, the photographs I'm showing are in a community called Alto de Cabro, back in San Juan, Puerto Rico. The purpose of this workshop is to bring students of architecture and other disciplines to the reality of the people who inhabit and use the space design in a collective environment. Students learn from the experience of people, citizens, clients with whom they will work and collaborate in the spaces they inhabit, and they take into account their needs, their aspirations, and their local knowledge when designing. Also, people learn from the academic and technical knowledge of future architects and feel able to continue maintaining and developing the place in which they reside. The workshop specializes in the design and construction of communal spaces. In this case, we first went to the community and several times, and we started like observing what happened in there. And we actually had one of the residents of the community gave us a tour and talked to us the most important places in the community. After that, the students made a site analysis and developed these techniques based on that observation. Some of them was with, like you can see, with photographs, post-its, and the people reacting to these photographs and saying which were their needs. And in the maps, identifying their homes and the most important places in the community. And we also had like a big chalkboard where the community started writing things about what they were thinking about the community, how to develop this community. It's pretty small. It's almost disappearing. And we were trying to make people to think about that also, like why this is happening and how this could be better. And in the process, the students also made this puzzle where they were like playing with the kids that live in there, and while they were like looking for the pieces of the puzzle in different parts of the community, they were talking with the kids, and the kids were like saying to them what they like to do, and at the same time, they were thinking about the places where the pieces of the puzzle were. And the actual photographs is a photomontage with a space that the students make an intervention. And what happens if that space is like you can see, like full of people? And what happens if this space is something else? After that, I started teaching the housing design studio. In this housing design studio at the Polytechnic University of Puerto Rico, we have just 3 months to make design proposals, and that's why I wanted to implement. I also wanted to implement a participatory process, but because the time was so short, what we did was we used a participatory process that I worked with, was previously done with a corporation called Proyecto Enlace del Caño Martín Peña, and we'll be talking about that. Like I said, the housing design studio requires students to learn concepts and fundamentals of design and also to have architectural problems of advanced level. Emphasize on fundamentals of design, focus on the subject of housing. What you can see here is some precedents that they were studying before starting with the exercise. International precedents of architects that use a participatory process like Giancarlo De Carlo or Ralph Erskine. They study housing complex in Puerto Rico that are actually working pretty good. One is the first resident complex, public housing complex called El Falasterio. That is the third photograph. The Falasterio is designed thinking about the common spaces at the balcony that you can see are not individual balconies from individual apartments, but are communal spaces that are in the stairs. They also study the fourth photograph is el condominium El Monte that have like many kinds of apartments, different typologies with one, two, three bedrooms and in 1 or 2 floors. And the hallways are at the outside, like the streets in the yard of Allison and Peter Smithson's in the building that they designed back in Britain. And at the end, they study housing projects that are made are new in Puerto Rico and are also made with our participation of the residents. For the purpose of the housing studio, I implement this work done with the Proyecto Enlace de Caño Martín Peña, Enlace project. Enlace project is in charge of the rehabilitation of Caño Martín Peña. El Caño is a course of a river that needs to be dredged because the communities that surround this course of water are constantly flooding. Proyecto Enlace is in charge of that work, but is also in charge of the urban, social, and economic development of the communities. These people that live near the water needs to be relocated, and Proyecto Enlace is working with several projects for that relocation. They wanted to stay in the same community. That's why it's a job that's being done for a long time and it's taking some time. And I help them with the participatory process, and they actually made this participatory process with a model and developed some guidelines for the design of housing based on this participatory process. To locate, for you to know exactly where I'm talking about, is San Juan, Puerto Rico. The yellow part is called Santurce, and the small part in the top is Old San Juan. Santurce divides Old San Juan to Rio Piedras, that is another big community and that now is divided in several communities. The yellow part is where I'm talking about, the river that divides the yellow part with the gray part in the bottom is the Caño Martín Peña. As you can see in the first photograph, this is the course of the river I'm talking about. And when the people in the 50s start to move to the city, they start occupying land, the land that was empty, and occupying some land that have some problems, not occupying land with problems of water, like this one, like gaining space of the water. And this is what's happening right now. The channel, the course of water it doesn't almost exist. And they need to walk through this polluted water, that every time that there's like a big rain, this is what happened. And in Puerto Rico, it's raining almost all the time. You can be below the sun in the beach, and it's beautiful, and then the second later it starts raining. And this could happen anytime. And that's why the project Enlace made this process for the relocation of people in a terrain that they identify. These are some photographs of the participatory process that I helped them with. And they used these models, this model that you can see there. There were like many models in different tables, and groups of people working with the models. The little blocks represented houses or apartments of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. And they also had cardboards representing public spaces, basketball courts, parking spaces, gardens, and they had to reflect about how they could locate that blocks in the space that they had, and reflect about what were their needs, no? And what happened? After that, they needed to talk about why they took that decisions, and that's what you can see in the last picture. We were writing every reflection that they made. They had the problem of identifying their needs, but also to realize the difficulty of locate many houses in a limited space of land. But they said important things, and they took many decisions. And these guidelines were made about these decisions. Like, for example, they decided that they wanted the taller buildings facing the main street and the lower buildings behind that. They wanted like walkable streets, diversity of parking, wanted their houses being closer to the public transportation. They also talk about their apartments, how they want to like bigger spaces, and about the heights of the buildings, and about about the sun and about the winds, and all of that they realized it just with that participatory process with the model. For the purpose of the class, I chose this site that is close to El Caño, Martín Peña, as you could see in the previous photographs. Where this site is located, there was a high-rise building of public housing that was demolished because it was a failure, no? Like many failures of this kind of buildings. For this purpose, they saw the documentary of Prut Aigo, the myth. They studied like what were the problems with this building and what happened, and they actually had a lecture with the community leader of this that used to live here, and they are still fighting for new housing in this place that's still empty. There's been like more than 5 years that this happened, and the site's still empty. And the community leader is eager to make people know what were the problems, what are their needs, and they need like affordable housing, housing that could actually be closer to the rest of the communities, because this building it was surrounded with one of the communities of El Caño Martín Peña called Las Monjas. But they had many problems with the rest of the communities because they felt segregated. And the other communities used to see them like the people that received the help from the government, and like they are apart and they were always in a big fight. The building also have problems of maintenance, have many rules and regulations, and even that the community leader said to the students that they had a great sense of community and belonging. They lost the control of the place because of the regulations and because of the maintenance of the building. And at the end, this is what happened. People started leaving the building little by little, and at the end, they demolished it. Then the students, after that, started to make different site analysis based on the regular analysis of figure ground and circulation, winds, the sun. But they also made analysis of the image of the city and about the pattern language of the site, of the surroundings, based on the stories of the community leader of what this place used to be, but based also in what happened around and what happened in the community Las Monjas and what happened in all the communities around the Caño Martín Peña. As you can see here, this is the work of one of the students that he was working with the pattern language, and he identified the patterns in the different places in the map, in the site plan. And what he made was like identify the difference of the patterns with an actual patterns of hash and colors, and talking about what these places were about now, the comparison between the qualities of the place and the actions that takes place in there. After this analysis, the students base their project in the guidelines of the participatory process of Proyecto Enlace, and they started designing their projects based on that guidelines and on the analysis and on the lecture. They started with the minimum part of the house, like with the apartment, and as you can see in this proposal of Nicole Mercado project, she used the guidelines. One of the requirements of the course that they identified which guidelines they were looking at, and then she identified that for the people was also important, very important, to have their own patio and their own balcony, and to feel that even if they were living in a collective housing, that each house or each apartment have their own identity. And she pointed on that, and she started making combinations of apartments with terraces, leaving some spaces for them to feel like everybody have their own patio. But also this proposal is about not just that everybody have their own patio, but that they can in the future use this patio and expand their apartments and continue having this sense of belonging on land. All of these projects were also based on the low-rise, high-density philosophy, like in the Charles Correa projects, and they were trying to. They had their limits on a certain amount of apartments that they need to design in these limits, but every apartment needs to feel like an individual house. This is another analysis of a proposal based also in the guidelines of community participation. She was Evelyn Villalobos. She was also worried about the idea of the patios and how the patios could be integrated with every apartment. But also the integration of these patios with a central space, with a central big communal areas that even everybody could have their own space. These spaces are related with a major space. This is another proposal of Luis Villanueva that was based on also on the central patio, and the idea of the central patio was also in that the people can like make their spaces like their own, no? Like they could use like a public art and public activities and make the space like to belong to them. And one thing that is very important in communities like this in Puerto Rico is the basketball court, no? And that's why he put the basketball court right in the middle. The community leader of Las Gladiolas, when she went to give her lecture, she talked about that, and she talked about how the balconies of the buildings were all looking at the basketball court, and it was like a big theater, like Grace looking at the basketball court, but actually also at the communal spaces. That was an important part of the project of Luis. And also he designed the units, thinking about the idea of supports, individual units of John Habraken. Every one of them could have the flexibility of change and be like a different unit. Suhaili's project was focused on the idea of the guidelines of the views, and how can every apartment could have a different view and could be open to that view, but also with the idea of how to communicate the new buildings with the community of Las Monjas. That she was so focused on that, she didn't want to have that separation, and she wanted this to be really integrated with the rest of the community, and how these communal spaces could be used not just with the people from the building, but also with the people from the surroundings. This site is close to this community, but it's also close to the main big area of the banks, and it's like a site with that you can see the contrast between this in this site where all the big buildings are, and the communities, the small communities. Carol was focused on the idea of the history of the place and of the footprints of the buildings of Las Gladiolas, and she wanted to maintain the footprint and work with the same footprint, even the buildings that look like they are in the same place than the Gladiolas buildings. They were actually thresholds that communicate the main streets with the community of Las Monjas. Okay. Some of the conclusions are that to incorporate community participation in the design of collective housing and public spaces should not be an extra component in a project. Housing and the spaces that surround it are associated with both the place and its culture. For this reason, to understand the culture of a place is not enough to be a distant observer. It is necessary to talk to its inhabitants to understand how they live and what their aspirations are. This should be an integral part of the education of an architect. Students should not only learn from their teacher, but also from individuals for whom they are designing, then learn from their experience in space. Establish design guidelines based on a process of community participation is a great tool to incorporate the design, the voices of its future inhabitants or users, and to anticipate future changes. And the ultimate goal of the students should be designing houses that can be converted into homes. That reminds me of the conversation about the difference between house and a home that we had yesterday, where residents have a sense of belonging and attachment to their dwellings, but actual for the entire community. If you have any questions about the presentation.
Yes, thank you for the lovely presentation. In the scope of the time, we have time for one question or maybe two. So any questions? Yes.
Thank you very much. Very interesting and also very challenging, I think, what you're working on. What I understood that you also work on concrete projects with communities, eh?
Yeah.
It's not only with students. So I would like to know a little bit more about the challenges of working with communities. You were mentioning in our discussion yesterday something about the time. But what is a community and how do you work with them and what are the challenges?
Well, the challenge about time is more because of the class, the time that I have that was so short in this case. But actually, yes, the challenge to working with the community is, in this case, is a great challenge because we have different communities in the same spot, communities that they have very different needs. And that are not really integrated, and how to make a proposal even with the design guidelines that could be integrated with the place, and that people from every community that is close to each other could be let's say happy. But I realized with my experience that the people, what makes them feel better is to have a word. You have the opportunity to say something. And when they feel that they can say something and then they could be part of the process itself is the most important thing. And after that, they feel that the project is their project.
Want to add something?
Yeah, for some, very, very short. It's also, for some, it might be a little bit of a luxury to be able to participate because some people don't have the time to participate. So, I mean, like real poor people who have to struggle to make a living, do they have the time to participate in all these interesting projects?
Actually, it's like the case of the Sostre Civic that we saw before, that when you work with an organization that have a structure already, and like Proyecto Enlace, they've been working with this for many years. Then people is eager to participate, but for this, in this process, we didn't make it in one day. It was one weekend, one night, different days. Then more people could participate, because if you do just one meeting, or there's not enough people that could represent the whole community. And it was kind of hard, but it's a lot of work, but at the end it's better.
Are there any other questions? Well, yes.
Thank you. No, just a quick question about density. You said high density, low rise. So if you have numbers for us, and also from this exercise, do you believe there was an optimum density that will probably generate livable spaces?
I'm sorry, the last sentence.
Do you think through this exercise you have identified optimum densities that theoretically will lead to more livable environment, as opposed to the high-rise ones that were failure, right?
Yes. Well, the problem with the high-rise, the people they wanted to feel that they have their own house, and it's difficult to have individual houses, no, because we need density, and they are right in the middle of the city. They're pretty close to the big city, and another challenge is to have as many unities that could be possible in the same site, but that they still have the feeling of a house, of an individual house. That's why many of the students work with the idea of terraces and patios that could be integrated, and that every apartment could feel like a house. because the high-rise building didn't work in many places, but in Puerto Rico is so particular. You know, they're even afraid of the elevators in that building that they demolished. The elevator for many years didn't work, and people needed to go up. And when you talk about elevators in communities like this, it's like I don't know. They don't want to know about it, and we try to make the better as we could with many units that we can locate in the place, but not with the high rise.
Do you have a number?
Of
Units per hectare?
I remember. No, I don't remember that right now, but I don't have the